Hello and welcome. My name is Jana Bracko, and I help people with bowel diseases to heal with the help of specific carbohydrate diet. And today I have a huge pleasure and I'm honored to welcome my special guest, which is Jeffrey Berger. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you so much.
Jeffrey is the founder of a specific carbohydrate diet association in Florida, and every year is helping so many people within his supporting groups and in the conferences and also in person. Jeffrey is cooperating with doctors and with other influencers and specialists. What is also interesting that Jeffrey also developed Crohn's disease, and as far as I know, he suffers from the disease since he was 18 years old. However, the suffers word is not probably the best word because he has been for 23 years in remission, and he doesn't perceive any symptoms of the disease. And I believe this is mainly thanks to specific carbohydrate diet, if I'm not wrong. Jeffrey, we have plenty of questions for you, and I can't wait to ask and to hear your answers. So at the beginning, welcome once again. And maybe would you like to add anything for your introduction? Probably yes. I didn't cover all the range of your amazing help and support. So is there anything what would you like to mention?
I think you covered everything. I'm just turned 61 years old. I was officially diagnosed when I was 18. I may have been born with the disease. That's my thought process. But it didn't come to be until about 18 years old. And I've been following the diet for 28 years after meeting Elaine Gottschall in San Francisco, California in 1995. And she inspired me to focus on food as medicine. And I've been there ever since.
Cool, cool. Brilliant. Thank you. Jeffrey, let's start just from the scratch. And let me share the first question. I would love to ask you whether have you ever witnessed anybody to heal completely from bowel diseases, from inflammatory bowel diseases, thanks to the specific carbohydrate diet? Is it possible, or is it just commerce?
No, it's completely possible to follow the specific carbohydrate diet is to eliminate grains and processed foods and to keep things very simple in its natural state. So that means no food additives, emulsifiers. If someone is able to follow the regimen, the routine, the science of the diet 100%, there's every chance of healing 100% from the disease. The disease is just one aspect, as there are other issues within the body that always need to be addressed. And sometimes those are not as addressed, such as the thyroid, the adrenal gland, the brain, the heart. And then you have, other organs as well, the kidney, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas. But you also have the vitamins and minerals and enzymes and hormones and iron that all make up one whole picture. So if someone's just focusing, well, I've been eating every food that's been outlined for the specific carbohydrate diet, and I'm still not getting that point, of where I want to be or should be. There may be other issues that naturally people could be lacking in their hormone or in their iron or in their vitamins. And sometimes those deficiencies, such as vitamin D, can make a huge difference in people's lives. And for me, it was B12, it was iron, it was vitamin D, which I was lacking in. And people say, well, I go out in the sunshine. I live in a sunshine state. But besides that, wherever I lived in the world, I was always outside. I enjoyed the sun. But I just don't absorb vitamin D from the sun. It just doesn't happen. So It's important to work not only with the gastroenterologist or someone focused on your GI tract, but it's also important to consider your general practitioner and other specialists that complete every organ in your body.
Yep, understood. And do you think would it be possible actually to follow the diet and don't take any supplements and just to be healthy and to feel right and okay, or is it a necessity in your opinion?
It's not a necessity because each person is different. We are not clones of each other, and they've done twin studies, so they've actually looked at paternal and maternal twins, and they don't have the same identical gut microbiome.
Yep.
So what would be given that I would follow what you do? It's important to look at the individual, the environment plays a part, the genetics also play a part in the diagnosis and also the component of our overall being. So it is important, and I would never generalize and say, well, most of the people don't take supplement. Actually, they do. So the survey that we did was the number one was vitamin D was number one supplement that people used. And that was probably because by blood work they were deficient. The second one was B12, and the third one was iron. So people worked with their hematologist or their general practitioner and restored their iron levels. It doesn't necessarily mean you're bleeding because you are lacking iron. It means that you may not be taking in enough iron in your food supply, and it may not be absorbed. So most people have this myth that because I am iron deficient, I must be bleeding someplace. But that's not true. It could be that you're just not absorbing enough or you're consuming enough.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Jeffrey, what do you think is the hardest on the diet? What is the most challenging, let's say? What is, the
everyone is different. The survey that we did showed 65% were happy with their path. 35% believed that they were going against medical advice by following the specific carbohydrate diet. And so influence in our lives and mindset in our lives play a very important part. When we wake up in the morning and we know that we think we're going to have a bad day, there's a very good chance you're going to have a bad day. And if you wake up in the morning and you give yourself the biggest smile and you think positive, it will be positive. So I think the challenges for the specific carbohydrate diet is really different for everyone. For me, it was peer pressure. So the influences of my medical community that I chose all believed that diet wouldn't work. Well, they're not paid to think that way. But I have my 91-year-old mother who I took out for lunch the other day and was upset that I didn't have anything to eat but a cup of coffee. And I told her that everything on the menu at the steakhouse had sugar in it. Oh, just have a little. And I kept on reminding her that little could actually set me off and be sick. And you don't want me sick. No, I don't want you sick. I understand, but have a little. So I have done my best to eliminate those peer pressures in my life, and whether or not it included family, except for my dear mother. Or try to limit my exposure to social settings that were going to influence me to have something that would not be right, and I would have to feel like I fit in. One of the important sayings that a young teen had said, when people look at you, they all want you to fit in. But what he realized was, and I think we all do in some ways, is following the specific carbohydrate diet makes me unique. That I am actually disciplined enough to follow a list of foods, fruits and vegetables that will make me healthy. And if that actually is going to exclude people in my life, or include people in my life, that will be what will happen. But I need to follow this regimen, this diet, in order to stay healthy. And that just makes me unique. In today's world, we all want to be unique, and so it's okay. And I think that that is the biggest challenge: is the the self-confidence, the self-awareness, self-respect, the dignity, the self-esteem that people at times can tear you down, being no good, to doubt yourself, to gaslight, to really make you feel unworthy. And I've heard that from some of my doctors in the past, and I hear that sometimes from doctors that I don't even know, and they say, "Oh, you have Crohn's disease? Oh, that's the worst disease in the world." And I said, "Oh no, it isn't.
Mm.
Cancer, terminal cancer, I think is the worst. Any terminal disease, I think, is the worst." "Oh no, no, but Jeffrey, that's not what we mean." "No, that's what you mean." I still live with my Crohn's disease every day. I'm in remission. I've been in clinical or asymptomatic remission 23 out of the 28 years that I've been following the diet. I still am reminded every day that I have Crohn's disease, but it doesn't occupy my life where I need to plan my bathroom stops and my symptoms and the fear and anxiety of living with the disease. And I think that the point is that instead of denying it or bargaining with it or um, uh, grieving it, that you accept it. And this is what I have. And other people have other diseases in their life.
Yes.
And you accept it. But on the outside, "Oh, but you look so healthy." Yeah, but did you ever see my little surgical scar? I mean, you don't do that. But it's all about what we put out there. But inside, everyone has something going on.
Mm.
I always think, going back, I always think, geez, if I only lived a perfect life, like I had a perfect GI tract, my life would be so much different. But I can't imagine what my life would be like because I've always had an issue since I was born.
Yes.
So it was, I learned a lot, and I think that that's what I was given, to learn my life lessons and to learn a different path.
Mm.
Uh, and that was not something that came easy. But the only thing I wanted to know when I got my diagnosis, the first question I asked my doctor was, "Am I going to die of Crohn's disease?" And he said, "Oh no, no, you won't die of Crohn's disease." I said, "Okay, great, this is awesome."
Yeah.
That's cool. So I think that it's a matter of where you perceive, where you look at what your mindset would be.
Actually, it plays to my heart because I wanted to ask you whether is there anything in the behavior which you think that is related to the Crohn disease and which you needed to change, in your perceptions or in your behavior or your thinking, in order to stay healthy?
I can share my personal. I actually thought that I was a very strong person. I was in a very uh, always in a leadership position in many companies, and always in the front, and always the speaker. Um, I'm actually a very quiet person,
Mm.
but it's a different persona. And I think that I didn't have the positive self-respect, in work, as in human resources and developing cultures for companies. I didn't realize that I was teaching everything, but I wasn't teaching it for myself. So I realized that my self-esteem was not strong when I left the office. My
Mm.
self-respect, my dignity, well, my dignity was always in check. My self-confidence, my self-doubt. But I was teaching it every day, and I was empowering people, and we had a great company, and rah rah rah, and all these big cheerleaders, and I'm always your cheerleader. But at home, I wasn't getting it. And I realized in fact, I changed my home environment. I left the relationship I was in. It wasn't building my character. It was tearing it down.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to move forward. So yes, personality, I think, and mindset does have a way. It's not what you give out, it's what you feel in.
Brilliant.
Um, and it's very hard, you know. It's a work in progress, as we always are. And I think that's where some people would rather have that instant gratification or satisfaction of I'll just take this pill and my headache will go away.
Yeah.
The problem is that even though you took the pill to make the headache go away, you never found out why you had a headache.
Mm. Mm.
But but the headache went
Right.
away. That's all that matters. No, it doesn't. Why did you have the headache? Is there other issues that are going on? So, sometimes in the way of looking at yourself, trying to draw something closer, I think that when people do follow the specific carbohydrate diet, they become hyper alert.
Yeah.
They elevate their alertness. Oh, I feel something here. I never felt it before. Well, you probably did, but you just so everything now is looking at why is this happening and trying to further evaluate in their personality. But people that want something to happen overnight doesn't always happen.
I'm so grateful you are mentioning this. This is so important in my opinion. And actually, you even also tackled the topic in regards of doctors, because I still see that many people who suffer from the bowel diseases, they trust blindly doctors, and many doctors, I would say 95% here in the Czech Republic, they don't trust the diet, or they don't approve the diet, let's say, and they don't recommend it further, despite they have like hard results and hard, reasons why to trust it, let's say. Why do you think doctors do it? Doctors don't trust the diet, or they just recommend the diet, or they just don't support people who would like to start with a diet? Because that's also what I learned, that even when I have the diet, I have the results, my doctor just doesn't support it. Why do you think so?
Well, Elaine had a lot to say about it, Elaine Gottschall, and I know that other people have spoke about it. I try to look at it from a personal perspective as well as a professional perspective. I wanted to be a doctor when I was growing up. I was told I wasn't smart enough. So unfortunately, that was something on my self-esteem and self-worth that I had to work on. And I can talk very well about it, but I'm not licensed, and I wouldn't play the game to practice. The science of this whole stuff is the unknown. So 85%, this was quoted by one of my doctors, they said 85% of all disease and illness we don't know anything about. We guess through trial and error, but we don't always know.
Yep.
And when the doctor told me that was my wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
And my wake-up call was, well, geez, if they don't know 85%, then I should be doing some research on my own, because I'm going to someone that doesn't know as much as I thought they knew. Now, because of the internet, a lot of the information is available on the internet, and they're called algorithms. So if you think about it, I have a fever, I have a cold, and you think, okay, do I have a temperature? I should take my temperature. I should feel if I have any aches or pains. And you start going through this list in your head, even with your own children. What else could it be? Well, that's playing doctor, but we don't think of it like that. And at times when doctors or clinicians are practicing medicine, that's what they're doing. They're practicing medicine, trying to make a diagnosis, and then what they do is it's through trial and error to use different medications because that's what they do. So we know that in cardiology with heart conditions, they will tell you to reduce your salt intake and focus on less sodium because they know that the salt and the sodium increase inflammation of the heart. Well, salt and sodium actually increase inflammation in the GI tract too. When someone's a diabetic, diabetic type 1 is genetic, diabetic type 2, obesity, is not genetic. And maybe there's some studies. But when people are type 2 diabetic, they have to watch their sugar. So the doctor's going to say, well, you know, you should reduce your processed sugar intake or your processed foods or your carbohydrates or your fruits or whatever it may be. So there are diets out there. There are regimens out there to follow to improve your health. There are no, you know, as long as it's safe, sustainable, and simple, people will follow it. And the specific carbohydrate diet is that it's only designed to look at the fruits and vegetables, and to eliminate the grains and the processed foods. So why it's a matter of they're practicing medicine. They're in there saying, if this medication works, great. If it doesn't, we'll try something else. And then you go through this whole long list of medications until there's no more medications. And then they say, well, you know, we can always cut out your intestine and you can live without that part. And I can only share, you know, in my 40 plus years of living with Crohn's disease, if I had stuff cut out, more stuff cut out than what was, which was damage, I wouldn't have very much of a bowel left if I followed the recommendation.
I can imagine, yeah.
So I took my own information. In fact, when I got my diagnosis, I was at the medical library and I did research. Every time I had time off from work, I was working at the hospital as well. But every time I had time off, I went to the medical library. This was before the internet in the 1980s, early 80s. And so that's my thought process. Well, you know, I need to do research. I need to learn about it because I can learn as much as a doctor can. I may not understand all the clinical terms, but if I took Latin or if I understand language, I can be able to decipher the words. And so it's not brain science. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. And so if I told my doctor that I was eating fast food every day, like McDonald's or some of the fast food chains every day, they'd be like, oh, great, great. Or maybe you should cut back on that. So what's interesting is that just because you have eliminated processed foods from your diet, including sugar, and you're looking at certain fruits and vegetables, that's not unusual. And so, you know, even the meat, animal protein is all good. It's protein.
Yeah.
So, so looking at the Mediterranean style diet, which is nothing in writing, there's no diet really, it's a way of life, and that is the specific carbohydrate diet. It's a way of life. It's only removing junk food or food chemicals in your body or in your food supply that are actually making you unhealthy. So why they don't want you to follow it, you may not come back, and that actually is the joke. Yep. You know, doctor, do you know anybody on the specific carbohydrate diet? Oh yeah, I had a couple of patients. How are they doing? I don't know. They never needed me. They never came back. So, so what Elaine used to say is make sure you go back to your doctor and tell them that the reason you're doing this is, you know, you don't need to come back is because you're healed using this SCD. Sure. And with my doctor, my last doctor, he kept on telling me medication, and I said, you know, you just don't get it. After 8 years of coming to you and you see all the normal results and you're still telling me to take medication, you have to wonder what your motivation is. And I left it at that, and I wrote him a letter. And he he opened the door for me, because if anything should ever happen, I told him he would be the second person to know. If I ever needed medication, he would know. If I ever needed any help, he would know. But right now, I'm doing good.
Brilliant, brilliant. Jeffrey, there are people who already developed the disease so far that they need either a surgery or they need to be treated by biologic treatment. What is your opinion on biologic? I know it's a little bit controversial. Some people are totally against, some people are welcoming it. What's your opinion?
Surgery is something to consider, depending upon your situation. Some elective surgery that is done, such as the removal of the colon, they will tell you that you could be cured of colitis because they remove the colon, and it is factual. But what they don't always tell you is that there's a very good chance that the disease comes back at the terminal ileum, and now it's called Crohn's disease. So they haven't worked that out yet. They can't figure it out. Biologics. The issue with biologics that I have personally and professionally, and I would hope and encourage everyone to do their research online, to ask their doctors for clinical information as to the efficacy rate. The efficacy rate is the rate that people will achieve success.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the biologics overall are only achieving 30% success rate in the first year. And on average, the second year of taking it, it drops by a third. And every year thereafter, it drops until it doesn't work anymore.
Okay.
The other thing to consider is the side effects that come with it. Not only short-term side effects, but the side effects for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years of your life. And a lot of people don't think of that. Well, I'll take this medication and it will take away the symptoms. Doesn't cure the disease. It only takes away symptoms, just like the SCD does. But they don't think about what's going to happen when I try to have a child later on in life. They don't think about what happens when I'm now 40 years later and I have loss of hair, more body hair, I got throat cancer, I have this, I have that, and it all could have been from the biologic. One doctor that I consulted with recently told me that the biologic, although you may have stopped it, never leaves your body because you now have given it an imprint to change your immune response and immune symptoms, immune response and immune system. And even taking immune suppressant is also what you're doing is you're stopping the immune system from reacting normally. Well, what happens 20 years from now? When are you still taking that medication? And that's something really to consider. What they're using now is 2 biologics at the same time. Oh, well, one doesn't work, so we might as well use 2 at the same time. So there are some clinical studies that have been done. And my only thing that I would like to say is being informed, educated, consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Know what you're getting yourself into, like you're purchasing a home or getting married for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Jeffrey, where, in your opinion, does research of the bowel diseases, of treatment of bowel diseases go? Is there anything what you would like to mention, like anything what is like really giving a hope maybe of the people who wouldn't like maybe to follow the diet, but who would like to relate to the like normal standard healthcare? So do you know about any new treatment maybe of the disease which is being prepared or something like that?
I know that one of the things that they're looking at, and there's been discussion, is what they're calling precision medicine. Precision, to get very precise about a specific issue. Because what they found was that there are over 200 phenotypes of Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis being one. So there's 200 different types of Crohn's disease genetically.
Okay.
So what they're doing is they're trying to give you one medication that thinks that broadly it can take care of all of it. They don't know enough.
Yeah.
And that's where it lies right now, is looking at nutrition, but also being very precise about what might work, what may not work.
Understood.
I don't know if any too much on the horizon other than stem cell research or stem cell therapy, which I do know has worked for some people. It's not available in the United States. It is available. It is available outside the United States. And people have traveled or in their own home country have used it with great success. So
okay, we have heard about it. Okay. Jeffrey, you are following the diet for plenty of years. Could you recommend or advise something what makes your life easier with the diet? What are your tricks, to have it easy?
I keep my food supply very simple. I don't own a cookbook. I use sometimes online recipes. I don't keep a very bland diet. I keep variety. But I'm not trying to recreate something of my favorite dish that I know I can't recreate. I don't set myself up for defeat. So for me, it's always trying to keep food in the refrigerator and the freezer. So I try to prepare my meals ahead of time. And I'm a caregiver and advocate for aging parents. So there are times where I have to leave my home in an emergency, and I can grab food, or I know that if I come home, I have food. And I think that's most important, is to prepare ahead of time for your meals so that you never go hungry. And I think there are times where people find themselves without food while they're on the diet. And then it's, I have to go to the store and buy ingredients to make my food. So in a perfect world, it's always nice to make sure that you have enough food and fluid, or enough food and drinks at home, so that you are well prepared in case of an emergency situation, or when you travel, you have, I'm going on a 10-day trip by car across the country and back. And so I'm now going to be preparing 3 meals a day ahead of time. Times 10 days is 30 meals.
Wow.
And that way I don't have to be so concerned about a restaurant, although I can. There are some food stores or dining places that I can eat. But I don't always want to leave it up to someone else. And of course, this trip, I don't want to ever take a chance of getting sick. Sure. So I would always keep an ample supply of food at home, that it's readily available for me.
If you prepare 30 meals for the trip, where do you store the meal? So it's frozen and you have some refrigerators or something with you?
I haven't investigated that, but there are thermal packages that you can actually have in your vehicle, in your car. And there are some that you can plug in.
Yeah, and it freezes, right? or like
Right, the electric.
makes it cold. Brilliant.
I haven't tried it yet, but I'm excited.
Yeah, we use it as well. We also travel a lot, and this is really lifesaver. It's amazing, actually. Super brilliant.
Well, I do know people that do travel with their appliances. So they will travel with an Instant Pot or with a burner, to cook their food.
Yeah, possible
Everyone's,
as well.
yeah.
Okay. Jeffrey, actually, I have a last question. The last question, which is rather personal. You don't need to answer. However, people are interested in it. Do you believe in God?
For me, yes. Um, During some of my happy days and my darkest days, it was what I've learned from people from all walks of life, all around the world. There may not be someone who is all knowing or has all the experience or can give you the answers. And my belief in a higher power doesn't always give me the answers.
Yeah.
But having the ability to center myself, to keep myself centered and grounded is very important for me. And so spiritually, it's to be able to draw upon something or someone that I personally envision or that I personally reach out um, to keep me focused and grounded so that I can make it through the day. And I think that's one of the things when I wake up in the morning, it's thank you, dear God, for giving me this day to make it. I hope it's the best. But who my God is compared to others,
Yeah.
I would never, ever judge anybody. I've traveled the world for the most part, and it's just about what I envision, not necessarily what other people do. And it's not a religious thing in per se, because what I found in life is that people don't always choose their religion. They're born into it. And because someone was born into a family that practiced this particular religion, meant that they were also that religion, but they didn't necessarily choose it. And I think that a religion is something of a choice, just as it is to study. When you study education, you're educating yourself. People that are born into a certain religion, or I shouldn't say certain, but people that are born into a religion don't always choose it, it's given. And they study it because that's what the family did, but they didn't necessarily choose it. And for myself, I think that it's important for people to realize that and to be able to make the right choices for themselves, because not always the family philosophy follows the personal philosophy. And I think that's very important. And I've known people that have self-destruct because the religion that their family follows does not follow what's going on in their mind or in their philosophy of life. And they suffer greatly because they're not able to be themselves because they were told within their scope that it doesn't fit for them.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to have you on the call. You were very inspiring, and I wish you all the best, and hopefully to speak to you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to leave with a few words. It's important to know that because you have the diagnosis, it doesn't set the prognosis. And I think that's very important when you take home the information, when you get the information from your doctor, whatever the diagnosis is in life. One of my greatest inspirations, actually, said recently, she said, I have cancer, and they told me I have 2% chance of surviving. But the 2% chance of surviving, it's what's going to keep me alive. And I will fight every day for that 2%.
Mm.
And she did. Unfortunately, the cancer beat her, but she's stuck. And when I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease officially when I was 18, I thought about my future. And nothing, absolutely nothing changed in my future. Because for every door that closed or every rejection I got back up, I opened that door, I found a new way, and I had to create my own path in life. And I'm proud of that. And I think what's important is that just because you have a diagnosis, it doesn't set your life plan. And I've been through 4 careers now, and this latest career, which was starting the Specific Carbohydrate Diet Association, was grown out of the community. And the community inspired me to go online and tell my story. And they wanted to all get together and have local meetings or national meetings to be able to create a foundation of an organization that will live beyond my lifetime.
Mm.
To be able to carry the legacy of the Specific Carbohydrate Diet on. And so meeting people that have the same disease, that are following the Specific Carbohydrate Diet, we're very fortunate that we can do so on the online community, but we can also do it in the physical world. And what's important to know is that you are not alone, and that there are other people. This is not a rare disease, although it is in my mind. Many people are told that it's not.
Mm.
And if you can control your environment, if you can control what you accept into your body clinically through medications or whatever interventions, there's one thing that you can't control, and that is your genetic makeup. And your genetic makeup actually may be the findings, the reason for why you have what you have. But what's important to know is that it's a journey that was given to you, and it's a matter of learning how to navigate the challenges in life and not set yourself up for this defeat. And so I'm not one to pick a day and say, this is my anniversary of when I started the diet, because I was always afraid that I'd be counting days. I don't have a weight scale in my house, because if I did, I'd be weighing myself every day. And I think that's self-defeating behavior. So I know myself. I know that those things don't work, like a weight scale or a blood pressure cuff, to do my blood pressure. I'd be like, drive myself crazy. But I'm not that way, because I don't carry that stuff. So I always think of positive stuff, I always think of positive stuff. And again, food is just one component. Whether or not it's meditation, whether or not it's reaching out for your spiritual advisor, through counseling, through organizational events, things that bring you passion and happiness in life, is just as important as anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be a romantic involvement with someone, but it could be some commonality that you have with an individual or a group of individuals that bring you together. And it's always important to know that in life, you may create your own path, but you're never alone. There's always someone there as long as you reach out. But if you're not one to reach out and you're afraid to share, it may not be the most comfortable way to go. But we're in it for the long run. And with my work experience and personal life, I started working with the elderly when I was only 16. So I was working with people that were 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. It was important for me to learn their philosophy and their wisdom. When was the best time of your life?
Mm.
What were mistakes that you made that I should know about that I won't repeat?
Sure, sure.
So it's always important to realize that there's so much life ahead. And even though I'm only 61 years old and I have 40 more years of life ahead, hopefully,
More.
it's always important to think about that. So whether or not you're a child that has the diagnosis or a parent with a child with diagnosis, or you are the parent with the diagnosis, know that there's a whole life ahead. And it's not always about taking that instant gratification. It's really about planning,
Mm.
planning your life as if nothing else happened, and maybe providing those safeguards in place that we all do. Well, what if my child gets sick? Um, what happens if? We all do that in life, but we always plan for that stuff, and some people don't. But there are ways of meeting those challenges. And so I never suffered with Crohn's disease. I had challenges,
Yeah.
and I had to figure out how to overcome those challenges. And I did so through diet, because as a sugar addict and a recovering sugar addict, I needed to make sure that that was something that I had to remove. I was telling my relative recently. I mean, I was 4 years old. My grandmother used to give me sugar cubes to eat, and she called them candy. And that started my sugar addiction when I was 4 years old. And that's what created my Crohn's disease over time. But now, do I blame anybody? I mean, and the other thing that I think about too is that a lot of issues that people have, they carry around and they don't make closure. And so I'm all about writing the end of the chapter to stories that don't have an ending. And so sometimes it's a matter of getting the emotional baggage off your shoulders, the bricks that you've been carrying around, and getting rid of those. Because what some people have found is that because they've held stuff in for so long, that it's caused so much stress on their body that it actually could have turned that autoimmune system button on that caused the disease that you have today. And so sometimes to release all of that, to complete the chapters in your story that don't have an ending, so that you don't repeat them every morning when you wake up and you rewrite the story until you get to the ending, that the person's no longer there to finish the ending of the story with you, or the chapter. You need to sit down and write that ending, so that every day you don't wake up again and get to the ending again that has no ending. Just write the ending. And as you begin to close all those chapters and those books, you now have a relief in your mind, and your body feels the relief of the stress that you've been carrying around for so long. And so I think that although it's one disease that we talk about, or many diseases that we talk about, what they're finding is that what happens in the gut is related to the brain. What happens in the gut is happening to the respiratory tract, the lungs, the heart, and every other part of our organs. Everything starts with the gut. And so to make yourself happier, or to live a happier life the best you can, or at least a calming life, I think is most important. And whether or not that means changing your work environment, whether or not changing the relationships that you have, it's important for the betterment of yourself,
Yeah.
to be able to live the happiest life possible, and to feed it with your food, but not looking at it as a problem that you have to make your food. You're actually making your medicine. And I think that's an important way to look at it.
Jeffrey, I couldn't wish any better ending to the call. Thank you. Take care,
Oh, you're
Jeffrey.
welcome. Thank you.
And speak to you
Take care,
soon.
my friend. All right. Bye-bye.